trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Where other film podcasts might allow our ex-wife to move on with their lives, instead, we go out of our way to try to murder her potential suitors with spicy shrimp. Each episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. May not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I'm a film critic, and I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks. I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man who does a great impression of a hot dog, Jake Miller. I knew you were going to do it. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, everyone. Now I'm doing good. Yeah,
it's a perfect way to introduce this movie. Just the kind of
was a funny little. that was hilarious,
man. This, and more than anything, like this movie really skirts the perfect madcap energy, hilarity, and the emotion, which we'll get into as we go along. But anyway, folks, this is our third listener's choice episode. Last week we had Matthew Anderson, who gave us Running Scared. Our first week we had Misery with our mom. This week we have another listener's choice episode. This was picked by one of our followers on Twitter, Skadoosh Co movie ranking. They are a UK-based YouTube film content. You can find them on YouTube at Skadoosh Co movie ranking. You can find them on Twitter at Skadoosh, hosted by Ryla, who is, I believe, Irish. So we very much thank you for your patronage, and very much thank you for picking this movie. I don't know about you, I had not rewatched all of it in a while. And
no, it had been a really long time.
It's been a while since I've seen it front to back, and it was a really rewarding rewatch for me. I'm sure we will get into it all. We are today talking about Mrs. Doubtfire, directed by Christopher Columbus, written by Rondi Mayhem Singer and Leslie Dixon, based on the novel Madame Doubtfire by Anne Fine, I believe it's Fine, starring Robin Williams, Sally Field, Pierce Brosnan, Polly Holliday, and Harvey Fierstein, co-starring Lisa Jacob, Matthew Lawrence, Mara Wilson, Scott Caparo, Martin Mull, and Robert Prosky. Opened on November 24th, 1993, and man, did it make money. $219.2 million US, 222.1 international, $441.3 million on a $25 million budget. It was the second highest grossing movie of the year behind Jurassic Park.
Wow. That's an accomplishment.
Quite the accomplishment, especially in 1993. Did win one Oscar. It is one of the few movies to beat Schindler's List at the Oscars. It won an Oscar for Best Makeup. A very, very deserved Oscar.
Of course.
An exception, like not even a question. Also won 2 Golden Globes for Best Comedy Musical and Best Actor in a Comedy Musical for Robin Williams. Pretty well reviewed for the kind of film it is. It's one of director Christopher Columbus's most well reviewed. 70% from critics, 77% from audience. A movie. It's one of those movies that it's very ubiquitous. It was such a smash hit in movie theaters. It was on TV all the time. It's one of those, everybody's seen probably Mrs. Doubtfire. We'll get into the little ins and outs. Quickly, I'll go through a quick plot summary if you don't know the plot summary of Mrs. Doubtfire. Daniel Hillard, played by Robin Williams, is a voice actor living in San Francisco with his wife and 3 children. His wife is Miranda, is a interior designer, a very successful interior designer, but it works a lot. Her and Daniel fight quite a bit, and the kind of final straw has gotten to the point where, since Daniel loses his job, he throws a big party. They eventually get divorced. So because of his lack of job, the judge grants primary custody to Miranda, and it's the only thing he cares about is seeing his kids, essentially. So Daniel works to rebuild his life, getting himself an apartment, trying to get a job at shipping. He's a shipping clerk at a TV station. And learns that Miranda is hiring a housekeeper. He devises a plan with his brother and brother-in-law, who are professional makeup artists, to become Eugenia Doubtfire, an elderly British lady. He comes in and endears himself to the children and to Miranda. All the while, he's trying to undermine Miranda's new romance with Pierce Brosnan, a very, very handsome Pierce Brosnan, I might add.
In his prime.
In his prime. I mean, this is pre-Bond, by the way. This is before Bond, the first GoldenEye comes out. Because I mean, you're like, okay, unspoiled Pierce Brosnan, essentially.
Yeah.
But a perfectly sweet man in this movie, but does nothing wrong. But anyway, so as they go along, everything seems to be going pretty well. He has to undermine the social worker. 2 of his children find out, so he has to keep that quiet. All the while, he impresses the station CEO, played by Robert Prosky, as he plays with dinosaurs to replace the longtime Child's host of a TV show. And the climax of the movie comes at this restaurant where he is supposed to be Miss Doubtfire celebrating Miranda's birthday and also having this business meeting. He gets drunk. It's a real, man, what a tension.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose, but he just gets scotch after scotch, gets drunk, and he gives that
restaurant's the best.
That restaurant is great, but gives Stewart, Pierce Brosnan, spicy shrimp, which he chokes on. He saves him with the Heimlich maneuver, but is revealed in the process. It causes Miranda to storm out and seek full custody, which the court very rightfully probably gives. And I mean, legal wise, I mean, but so even though everybody's kind of upset about it, they decide that this is for the best. Daniel becomes Mrs. Doubtfire on TV, becomes very successful. After talking, Miranda and Daniel have it out and kind of come to terms. And she kind of cuts with the custody is kind of overturned, and he sees the kids all the time, and they kind of go on living in their divorced life. So that's it's such a sweet ending too, with
it is
that ending with her,
but
with
also tragic.
It's
there's a lot of dichotomy there. Is like, man, this sucks, but
there's a way forward.
We'll be okay.
There's a way forward. It's not like
we're still punching forward.
Yes. Lots of stuff to get into about this. I don't know if I want to get right into Robin Williams, but we'll save it for a little bit, because we had talked a little bit off air, essentially, like how we had talked about these type of movies we watched when we were kids, and now movies we watch as adults, especially with children, and they're painted so differently. This one is painted so differently, and mostly because of the absolute love and adoration he has for his children. And you're like, it's like, okay, everything he's doing is nuts. I get it. Like, it's whatever you have to do. And even it's like the desire for him, he doesn't really want to get back with Sally Field. He just wants to see
his kids.
His kids. He's like, no, he realizes his marriage is over, but he can't get enough of his kids.
No, it's like when you're a kid, you know, what was this? He said 93.
93. So we're sub 10. Yeah.
I was 9, I think, and you were 7, and it's just funny. It's a goofy guy who dresses up like an old lady.
He's dancing, playing guitar with a broom. Like, that's the fun stuff.
Antics ensue, and it ends up okay.
Yeah.
And you can just go, oh man, that Robin Williams is funny.
Yeah.
Watch it after, over a decade of marriage and a couple kids, and then you're like, oh, man.
It's painful. Like, not even not even painful to be like, oh, this hurts to watch. It's just like, oh, I feel everything. It's like, oh, I hate it. Like, I hate just the longing
that
for
anxiety.
Your children. That anxiety, exactly. Like, we are lucky enough to be married to the mother of our children, so we do not have that separation. But I cannot imagine. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who have that separation, and that pain and that longing has got to be just achingly present.
Yeah, just even if you could do it amicably.
Yes.
Just the process you have to go through we have to explain it to the kids.
Yeah.
We have to figure out new living arrangements. We like, okay, we're split.
Yeah.
And as horrifically painful as that is, nothing compares to
the kids. Yeah.
To the kids. And so, I mean,
there's that one scene where Robin Williams makes the joke about Sally Field getting like a disease, and the little girl just doesn't like it at all. And it's like, oh, okay, that hits it in a certain angle. Like that kind of like, it's, hey, how, it's a joke. We know it's a joke. Everybody knows it's a joke, but the little girl doesn't know that. The little girl's like, you want her to die? Like it hits at such a different level.
And I think at one point she's talking to the kids and disparaging him, Daniel.
Yeah.
But he's there as Mrs. Doubtfire. And
obviously
she says, I don't think, basically, you don't need to talk shit about their dad.
Obviously, if you bash the husband, you don't want to you want the kids out of the room, and it's like, oh, okay, like it's a fascinating.
It's sage advice.
It's wonderful advice, because children, especially in a contested divorce, obviously people can get very bitter and they can use children as leverage, and that's just the good thing about this is, in this movie, there are two sets of parents who are madly in love with their children, and they care. Good parents. It doesn't matter that they don't love each other anymore. They're good parents. Essentially, with this movie, the humor's the hook, especially as an adult. The humor's the hook. It's like, come for the humor, stay for the stuff that gets you a little shook up.
Yeah. It's, I mean, like we've talked about, like, when you're a kid, you don't get the problem,
the subtext. Like, you don't,
and for us, like, I mean, we didn't grow up with divorce. It took us into our adulthood to be parents of children of separate parents.
But it was a rash when we were kids. When we were kids, we had friends left and right whose parents were getting divorced all the time, and it was. Yeah,
we're like, what's wrong with those guys?
It's weird, huh? Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't really litigate it doesn't litigate what the problem was. It's just like, no, it was little things that grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and over a course of at least 15 years, at least however long it was. Yeah, it's not like oh, we've been married 3 years and she cheated or so. No. It was like, everybody's like, he's out of work a lot. She's busy. Kids are active doing all this stuff. It's just things get in the way. There's no passion. And so, I mean.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a really tough scene. I believe they're in the kitchen and she's fed up and he goes, no, we love each other.
And she hesitates. Yeah. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, it hurts. I agree. I did want to, like I said, the struggle is about the kids and not the marriage. One thing I noticed, I don't know why it popped into my head, but I'm like, okay, all three of these kids, conceivably Sally Field and Robin Williams kids. Like,
that matches.
I think all three are pretty solid kid actors for what they're asked to. They don't really do a whole lot. They're mostly just this, like, they frown occasionally, they smile occasionally. Like, they're not really asked to do a ton, but
they're the emotional weight behind the conflict.
Yes. They're a structure more than, like, they're not really fully fleshed out characters. Exactly. But
that's a great way to put it. Is even though they are the most important thing. Yeah. Without them, you don't have a movie.
Movie doesn't have a movie. Yeah.
But especially watching this here recently, having kids, you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. It's insane.
And that speech he has in the courtroom. He articulates it perfectly. He's like, since I met them, I was madly in love with them, and I couldn't get enough. I'm addicted to my children, and and
I've got it here. I'm addicted to my children, sir. I love them with all my heart, and the idea of someone
yeah,
telling me I can't be with them, I can't see them every day. It's like telling someone
they can't breathe. Or the other cool thing about this movie is essentially like there's not really a villain. Like there's nobody, like, even though Brosnan, like, even the entire time you're like waiting for him to kind of take a turn to be like, oh, you don't want to like this guy. He never really does. All he does, he calls Daniel a loser, which it's not exactly wrong. Like,
yeah.
And it's just, he's the worst guy in the world you want dating your ex-wife.
Man, that's exactly that's exactly what I thought. Like when he's on they go to the pool, like this private club pool that he's got. And, he's on the diving board and everything. I'm like, man, if you and your wife are split and that's her new boyfriend, you're toast.
And it's just like,
forget it.
Oh, he must not have money. No, he has money. It's like, well, he's ugly. No, he's not. It's like, well, he's probably bad to the kids. No, he's wonderful to the kids. You're like, oh, come on. Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
And
damn it, I wish you were an asshole.
And it was funny. The only time you're kind of like all the kind of goofy stuff that Daniel does is Miss Doubtfire until he's like describing all the sexual stuff and talking about how Miranda has crabs. That was the only time I'm like, okay, he's probably gone too far. No, don't get me wrong. Those lines are great. Everything he says is hilarious.
The restaurant scene is amazing until
you're like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't
disaster.
Like it. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's disaster the whole time, but it's comedic up to a point until your jokes don't work anymore.
Sally Field has two Oscars, but her going the whole time is one of her top 10 moments. Like she is like, it's essentially just like, how would you react in this situation? It's like, that seems like a pretty logical reaction of what you should be doing.
Probably.
All right, let's talk Robin Williams, because this is essentially the movie where you're like, okay, you remember that scene in Boogie Nights where Burt Reynolds is like filming this movie and he's like, this is the one they're going to remember me for. This is the one, like, if I do nothing in my life, I did this. This is the one for Robin Williams. Like, you can
talk about a performance.
It's just top to, like,
everything he literally plays a million people in this.
Exactly. Yes. And you're like, everything that Robin Williams does, the zany energy, the sad, the pathos, the pathetic, like all of it kind of, of it makes it work. And all of that together. Hang on a second.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, my shit's going weird. That fixed it. Okay, good. Sorry.
We both got issues today.
All of that together, this is the perfect Robin Williams. This is when you look for a Robin Williams movie, you're like, Mrs. Doubtfire is the standard, because he's likable, he's sad, he's funny, he's vulnerable, he's everything about it is what you sign up for in a Robin Williams movie, and he nails it in every and you gotta, yes, the makeup is exceptional as far as what he looks like, but being able to emote and do what he does in that makeup and live in that makeup is incredible.
Yeah, he's got extraordinary range. Or he did.
Yes, he did. Rest in peace.
No disrespect, but the where he can portray like deep sadness and all these things, but then also be hilarious in the next scene. You know, it's crazy. And, you know, a lot of times, I mean, obviously Robin Williams was a troubled individual. Like he had
his own
mental
demons.
health issues,
Absolutely.
and he definitely had demons, but something I think whenever people see these hilarious comedians, you think they must be the happiest people on earth. And I think more often than not, they are the most tortured souls.
Absolutely.
And they have this, like, they have to have affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also, I think most comedians or comedic actors, or they have this just this need for affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you can make fun of yourself,
mm-hmm.
if you can make fun of your situation, it's almost like it isn't real.
Yeah.
I've you know, I've worked with a film crew here locally. Little show called Cops. I don't know if anyone ever heard it.
Sure.
But I was like asking the cameraman one day, like, why are you chasing after a cop, chasing after a maniac that's potentially armed? He's like, kind of when you look through the camera, it's not real. It's like I'm watching a show. And I kind of feel like comedy, sarcasm, that is the ultimate defense mechanism.
Absolutely. It's a layer of protection, because like, why would, like, nobody, if you do the crazy, stupid, silly stuff that you always are, if you're willing to go to the level that nobody else is willing to go, and you're doing that yourself, nobody can harm you because you're taking yourself down that level. And
exactly, it's self-deprecation.
The self-deprecation of it. Yes.
If I hurt myself, no one else can hurt me.
Exactly. And Williams, it's one of those things, like, yes, Robin Williams has an Oscar for Good Will Hunting. You look at like Good Morning Vietnam. There are other type of some movies exceptionally well done and all this kind of stuff. In 100 years, they're like, what's the Robin Williams movie? It's Mrs. Doubtfire. It's the one. Like, that's the one you point to when you're like, what was Robin Williams as a performer? And
I would agree.
Yes. And
he's had a ton of magnificent performances, but I would say this was his masterpiece.
Yes, I agree. It's unequivocal, like, more than anything else. I'm watching it and they're like, okay, he's such a unique talent that is, I don't think you can't replicate it. Like, you can kind of imitate it in a way, but it doesn't come as natural as he comes out, like that zany thinking on a millisecond, but being able to go to those levels of sadness and the feeling of love for his children, and the feeling of his own desperation, and the work he's willing to put in, and he betters himself through all this process. I mean, it's just an exceptional performance.
You can really see, like, he does a great job, like I was saying, using humor or sarcasm as a defense mechanism. Is like, when he's having like Chinese takeout with his kids in his crappy apartment, and he's like, how is the old battle axe? You know, and then he's like, well, I hope she doesn't have you know, dysentery. And you know, and the little girl's like, you want her to die? He's like, no. That's him joking about the worst freaking time of his life.
Exactly. He's trying to
joking about it.
He's deflecting
and
thinking about something terrible. And that's Robin Williams' whole thing. He's got the energy.
Yeah.
If he keeps this energy, whatever he's got going on, he doesn't have to focus on. Keep going.
And then,
Yep.
But if you stop, you die.
Yep. It's an exceptional performance. I unfortunately had to stop. Yep.
And tragically,
But an exceptional
lost a good one.
An exceptional performance for an exceptional performer. We will take a quick break and come back. All right, we are back. Every week I go through the filmography of the filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Bowl for a Dumbass. This week, we're talking about Mr. James Bond, the worst possible option for your ex-wife to start dating, Mr. Pierce Brosnan himself. Very good in this movie. Much like a vessel, like his handsomeness and his charm is kind of the only thing of what he does. But at the same time, there's kind of a little added extra of like, oh, they used to kind of be a thing, but they never were a thing because she was married. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, added a little addition to it. Pierce Brosnan, a long career, kind of struggled along in the 80s, but had a breakthrough in 1982 with the television series Remington Steele. Ran for 5 seasons. In the 80s, they wanted Pierce Brosnan to be James Bond. And the producers of Remington Steele, like, this show's a hit. I don't want to let him go. So they went with Timothy Dalton. And so he went back to Remington Steele, did a little movies here and there, and then finally broke through and was able to be James Bond. Debuted in 1995's GoldenEye. Do you remember GoldenEye? Which one that, besides the video game, the most iconic video game maybe in the history of shooting video games? But I mean, that's the one with the Famke Janssen squeezing guys to death with her legs.
Yes.
A classic. Probably a top 5.
I enjoyed it.
Probably a top 5 Bond movie for me. One of the best.
Yeah.
Essentially,
I didn't like the Dalton days. Brosnan was better.
See, it's funny. Me and my wife got a box set of all the Bond movies, and we're just like, you know what? Let's watch every one of them. And from the jump, and we started, and all those Connery Bonds were awesome. And then the last couple of Connery Bonds got bad. And then the Roger Moore Bonds are they're so bad. They're real bad. I really don't like the Roger Moore Bonds.
I will say Roger Moore has to be the worst.
And then they got to Timothy Dalton, and everybody's like, yeah, these movies suck. And I'm like, these movies are kind of awesome. They're kind of rad. Like they go a little darker than they should be, like in the 8th, like, okay. And then the Brosnan movies started good, and then they kind of fell off. And then I was a big fan of the Craig Bonds. Anyway, so after getting GoldenEye, he comes to much more prominence. Actually, Miss Doubtfire was the last movie he did before GoldenEye. And then the next year, or a couple small ones in between, sorry. But the next year, 1996, have you seen the film Mars Attacks?
Oh, yeah. Like,
there are
probably when I was like 10 or something.
It's a kooky, goofy movie with a million people in it. I think the movie at one point, Pierce Brosnan's head gets transported onto a dog, I think.
Yes. I recall that.
Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Martin Short, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, Rod Steiger, Tom Jones, Natalie Portman, the late great Jim Brown, who passed away today, Lisa Marie Presley.
I did see that news clip.
So I mean, a stacked lineup. But yeah, he is one of the many people in Mars Attacks. So now that he's more prominent, now he's Bond. He's like, okay, let's see what he can do as far as movies. And the same year, he does 1997. He does Tomorrow Never Dies, another Kuwait classic, a Bond movie.
Yeah.
And not a very good one, but a watchable one. There's a lot of aspects. I'm like, I like what it's doing. Michelle Yeoh's great in it, and good foil.
Well, it's kind of like what did they say? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're living in Kuwait and there's about 2 English channels,
I'll take what I
then
get.
Even if it sucks, I can understand it. I like it. You know what I mean? Beggars can't be choosers.
Speaking of sucks, speaking of Kuwait classics, the same year, 1997, starring Linda Hamilton, not Volcano, Dante's Peak.
Yeah.
I love like Dante's Peak is ridiculous, and I love it's so dumb, and like they try to outrun.
That's another one that when you're a kid, you're like, oh, that's awesome.
What am I gonna get? Yeah,
and then as an adult, you remember it, and you're like, that was probably terrible.
It's just like you want to talk about junk science in a movie. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, let's outrun a pyroclastic flow with a car. Yeah.
I just remember the old lady like dying in the acid lake.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite scenes, not because of her dying, but because like they're going along and this lady sacrifices herself by getting in the lake and pushing that boat, but they are 5 feet from the dock, and so she did
got a rope.
She did not do anything, and then she walks up the shore to get out of the water, not on the dock. It's like, lady, this is unnecessary. Anyway, Dante's Peak is terrible that I love.
Yeah,
but
it's a fair cheeseburger.
Exactly. Great point. Doing a couple other small stuff. Another Bond movie, 1999. The World Is Not Enough. Do you remember that one? That is the one with Denise Richards as a nuclear scientist.
Oh, wait. I remember Denise Richards.
She looked incredible. She can't act worth a flip, but man, she looked incredible. She looked great in that movie.
Shiny car that doesn't run so good.
Absolutely. Like,
it's just nice to look at, but you wouldn't want to drive it.
Nope. But the same year, 1999, much more. I've done a podcast about this movie, a movie I enjoy every time it's on, the Thomas Crown Affair.
Yes.
I like the Thomas Crown Affair.
I thought it was pretty good.
And Renee Russo is good looking in that movie, and she is on one. And it's just like, okay, what kind of role do you want Pierce Brosnan to be? It's like, oh, I want to be like an asshole rich guy who steals things. You're like, perfect. Like that's if it's not James Bond, that's the kind of performance you want him to be. Okay, we've talked about all the other Bonds. Let's talk about the one that ended his run. My personal pick for the worst James Bond movie, Die Another Day.
Yeah, is this the one where he like flies after a plane, like falls back to a plane or something?
He's paragliding on a piece of sheet metal.
Yeah.
And there's an invisible car. If not for Halle Berry, that movie would be pointlessly terrible.
Woo! She looked good though.
Boy, she looked good. You know who else is in that? Rosamund Pike is the other girl in that movie, by the way. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I saw that. I caught a bit. I don't want to watch it again, but I saw it on TV the other day and I was like, hey, it's Rosamund Pike. Yeah. But I mean, a terrible movie.
I think at the point that came out, we were probably old enough to go, oh, okay, this is bad.
Yeah. We're not like kids going like Bond movies. Yeah.
Also appreciate some of the scenery.
Yes.
Behind it.
Good way to put it. Yes. The true time to appreciate the form that is Halle Berry. The same year she won her Oscar, by the way. So 2004, Brosnan is done with Bond. He can finally do what he wants to do. And he kind of starts making some interesting choices. Have you seen the film After the Sunset?
After the Sunset.
It is Pierce Brosnan and Salma Hayek and Woody Harrelson. It's kind of like an action comedy, more action than comedy, but it's not great.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to give it a no.
Big surprise. Salma Hayek looks pretty. Yeah.
Because she usually looks like a wildebeest. You know,
it's a great point. I don't
when
remember.
She looked bad.
This is a fair point. Like in the movie Frida, she has a unibrow, and you're like, well, she still looks like Salma Hayek. So I mean, what really?
I'd still do her.
Yeah, exactly. What? Like, what are you splitting hairs here? Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
beggars can't be choosers.
Beggars cannot be choosers. I agree. I talked about it during the it was in the Poll for a Dumbass for our Boogie Nights episode when I talked about Julianne Moore. So I know you're not going to know it, but the film Laws of Attraction.
I know I have. But,
you have?
Yeah.
So Julianne Moore and Pierce Brosnan are rival divorce lawyers who fall in love.
Yes.
It is a bad movie that I will stick up for. Like, I don't know why. There's parts of it I was like, I can defend it, and my wife loves that movie. Like,
yeah, I think I've only seen it once, so I'm not super familiar. But yeah, I remember watching that one.
The most awarded movie. I don't think there's any chance you've seen this, but the most lauded his performance has ever been in a movie is a movie called The Matador. Have you ever heard of The Matador? He is a hitman with, I think, anxiety. And Greg Kinnear is kind of this just like normal guy who helps him. Like, it's a really interesting movie. It's one of those you're like, okay, I know what this movie is. And it's like, no, it takes some swings. It does some different stuff that you really would expect. I figured you hadn't seen it, but I did want to mention just because it's a really,
I really do like Greg Kinnear though.
And
fun fact, I've been to the high school that Greg Kinnear graduated
I knew you were going to say this. So what high school did he graduate from, Jake?
Well, it was in Amman, Jordan. It was a American and international school in Amman, Jordan. And we were there for art competition, and they had a plaque on the wall and everything. And
sure.
So
why not? Yeah. I mean,
just like me, he graduated high school overseas. So
you're in solid company.
I'm gonna make it to Greg Kinnear status any day now. I know.
I like it. There's some smaller stuff after The Matador. His biggest movie after The Matador, a movie I have never seen. I have heard there are no limits to the amount of gay men who love this movie. I have not seen it. I'll probably see it one day on TV. Have you seen the film Mamma Mia?
Fuck no. Do you even know me? Why'd you even ask that question?
An ABBA jukebox musical? It doesn't seem up your alley.
ABBA inspired musical. Sounds like something Jake would enjoy. No.
Well,
I like musicals. I'm nah. Like it's like we talked about like Old Country or
no. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes, where it's contextual.
Yes.
The music is contextual. Love it. But just the like people talking and then someone's like, oh, well, I'm like that's no. I'm out.
So Jake, do you prefer Mamma Mia or Mamma Mia Here We Go Again? Like that, which is your preference? The fact that there's enough ABBA songs to make a second musical, I'm like, oh man, like I'm sure I'll watch it one day, and I'll probably.
What is it, like a Swedish pop group? Weren't they from Sweden?
They were the first ever winners of Eurovision, actually.
Oh, prestigious!
Yeah, I know. So
I don't know what that is.
It's like an American Idol for Europe, but a much bigger deal. Like, all right. So one of the better movies I've seen him in, a movie in 2010. I know you haven't seen it, but I want you to just seek it out just because it's kind of a cool movie. The movie called The Ghost Rider. So Ewan McGregor plays a ghost rider to the former British Prime Minister, played by Pierce Brosnan, and there's some political intrigue, and Pierce Brosnan's wife plays a role. It's a really interesting little noirish film. It's a good movie. I would seek it out. The only downside is it's directed by Roman Polanski. That's the only iffy side of it. Besides that, pretty solid movie. Like that's we'll take that.
Sometimes it's tough to separate the art from the artist,
especially when the artist is a convicted pedophile who evaded capture and can't come back to the United States.
Right.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's kind of like, O.J. Simpson was an awesome football player. Michael Jackson, king of pop. Absolutely. Bill Cosby, hilarious. America's dad.
You just can't go there with these certain people. I agree. And if you don't watch a Polanski movie, I don't blame you. Like anybody who's like, I'll never watch a Polanski movie, I'll never be like, sure. Like that's by all means.
Right.
One more for you. It's funny actually. The Eurovision Song Contest, which is a movie on Netflix with Will Ferrell and your girl Rachel McAdams. He is in that. I wasn't going to mention that one, but he did do another movie. We had talked. Obviously, we've done the podcast on Shaun of the Dead, and then the follow-up to Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz. Awesome movie. And then there's a third movie in that trilogy, The World's End.
I haven't seen that.
The World's End. It's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It has kind of a lot of the same people. It's like sci-fi, but they're going on a pub crawl. It's my least favorite of the three, but it does some interesting things.
Okay.
Pierce Brosnan shows up in there. He shows up in a lot of stuff. He was just in that movie Black Adam, the Dwayne Rock Johnson superhero movie. He was just in that.
Yeah.
Apparently,
I've heard of that, but
he apparently is pretty good in it. A lot of people said that was one of the better things he's been in. But I imagine whenever you were James Bond for 10 years, you probably get the choice to do what you want to do. So
hell yeah.
It's like, well, what do you want to do? Whatever I want to do, buddy. Like that's kind of Pierce Brosnan's thing.
That's 007 money is fuck you money.
Yes. It's like I can do what I want to do, and was like, oh, what do you want to produce this? It's like maybe not. I get to choose. Also,
up to me.
He's also notably has been married to this. He's married twice. His first wife passed away, and then he met his other wife, who I believe he's been married. Let's see, they've been married. So they got married in 1980. She passed away in 1991. He remarried in 2001, and they've been married ever since. A very long-term guy. That being said, he had a 10-year period from 2001 to 1991 to 2001 where he was James Bond and single. So I think he's doing okay for himself. Nice to have a long-term relationship for that guy. Good for him. You have on the Pierce Brosnan tally: Goldeneye, Mars Attacks, Dante's Peak, Tomorrow Never Dies, Thomas Crown Affair, World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day, and Laws of Attraction. That is, let's see, that's 8 out of 13. Not too bad, buddy.
8 out of 13.
4 of them are Bond movies. Not bad.
Well,
You've definitely done worse. You've definitely done worse.
I have done worse. I think the last episode I definitely did worse.
Yeah, your Vera Farmiga was not great, but I've one day I'm going to go through and crunch the numbers and see what your worst one was. Well, we got 50 coming up. We got 50 coming up. I might have to go back and crunch the numbers for those.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks about that time, buddy.
Yeah, I think you're right. If you don't mind stepping in the room with me, sir, sorry to inform you, you're in the hot box.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I want to answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia, sometimes it's not. I used to think I was a funny guy, and then you just pointed out that I'm not a funny guy. What you got for me?
Well, okay. So obviously the makeup is amazing.
Yes.
To transform him, I mean, I think we can still see it's Robin Williams.
Yes.
But damn,
Exactly.
I mean, amazing makeup. Have you ever had to wear makeup or like, well, we had our Halloween costumes where we looked absolutely absurd. Maybe you might be able to link it.
Yes,
on our Halloween episode where we dressed up. We were pretty absurd.
Yeah.
But
I remember our 1 year I decided to go as Quasimodo. I went Quasimodo as for Halloween. And this is my great idea. And my mom, in a stroke of brilliance, put a big chunk of silly putty over my eyebrow, and it looked like I had a protruding brow on the right side. And it was I gotta give our mom credit. Our mom put up with a lot of that crap all the time. Like, we're just like, Mom, I want this cat suit. Got it. I'm gonna sew it. I'm like, what? Like, this was not
like, I think I was what's his name? Like in like Plymouth Rock, like we did a Thanksgiving play. I was a what's his name?
Columbus?
No, the Indian.
Yeah. Oh crap. Anyway,
Anyways, I was one of the Indians. It's not like, okay, I'll put a headband around you, stick a feather in it. There you go. Nope. No, she made me a full freaking headdress.
Yep.
Like, absolutely, like, went all out.
This is the 90s. This was not like the 60s whenever like people like, oh yeah, I'll sew you wedding dress. It's like, no, we're way past that. And my mom's like, no, I got this. Like,
I got it.
Yeah.
But she grew up on that.
Exactly.
Like, I need a new dress. And her mom would say, I'll go buy fabric and sew one.
We talked about this. We didn't grow up poor, but we grew up with parents who grew up poor. And so they passed all that stuff down. And now there was a separate time I was in a church play and I was playing an old sailor. I had a fake mustache and I had fake bushy eyebrows. And obviously
I remember that.
I was a kid and I didn't have a mustache, so I took the mustache off and I took one of the eyebrows very slowly, and it was very painful. And I took one of them off very slowly and I was like, ow, that really hurts. And my mom goes, just yank the other one off, rip, and off goes my eyebrow. And so luckily it grew back eventually, but I mean, I don't exactly have prominent eyebrows, but
those take a while to grow back.
Yeah. I mean, I looked, I was awkward enough as a 13 or 12 or 13-year-old and just added to the awkwardness.
Yeah. Well, have you ever been a mascot? Speaking of like just the pain in the ass of putting crap on, getting out of it. And
I was at a job where we were doing a charity night at our local hockey team, and they said, we need a couple employees. You get you get paid, but you don't have to work, and you have to go and be a mascot. And there was like Elmo and Oscar the Grouch, or there was Elmo and Grover, or you could be SpongeBob. I was like, I'll be SpongeBob. So I am in this big square costume, and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna give me yellow arms and I'm gonna stick through. Nope, they gave me sticks. So I'm sitting here like this the whole time, shaking hands.
Lord.
And we go on the ice for a little bit, and it's like, people are cheering, kids are cheering. And the way to get off the ice is you have to go behind the bench of the hockey players. And every hockey player decided, it's like, hey, let's punch the shit out of this guy. And
we're fucking this guy up.
I got the hell beat out of me as I was going. It's like, like I'm really glad I had my elbows down, or otherwise I'd have been in some trouble. But that was my soul mask.
That's the reason they put the sticks out, is because like you need to be in a defensive position, a strong defensive position.
It really like thank God those sticks were there. I'm and not to mention, like, it's minor league hockey, but this is like the equivalent of AA hockey. So these are not like slouches, like these are not random guys. They are big dudes and they can punch. I was like, oh yeah, that wasn't very fun, but the rest of it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I was Gus Gus the safety whale for
okay.
For the city we live outside of. I was Gus the swimming safety whale, and I did school presentations. And the thing was, I had flippers.
Yes.
But these flippers were like this. So I was in a similar situation as you. Is like I couldn't, I have long arms.
You're not extending your arms.
So it was like an hour in this stinking hot.
Oh, that's the thing they'll tell you. They don't tell you that. Those things stink.
Ooh, they get bad.
Yeah.
They get bad. And I had to look through the mouth hole. Like it had like mesh over the mouth hole.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't really see or anything. But one time this kid went up and grabbed the mouth and like actually looked in there, and he's like, "There's a man in there." And like all the kids went ballistic. I was like, "Did you think I was a real whale?
Do you think this the anthropomorphic
Dumb
whale?
kid.
Idiots?" Yeah. Whatever.
All right. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, you've been in a long-term marriage.
Yep.
And obviously your wife knows you very well. Your kids obviously know you very well. I do. Our mom does. Do you think there is any way in hell that enough makeup or something could be put on to you that if you just lived with any one of us, that one of your loved ones would at some point go, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest stretch this movie takes, is because like there's like, especially I think about my wife, and I'm like, she has been around me so much and knows all those little tiny things that I do. I would not be able,
the mannerisms,
the little things, like as like you would be dressed up as a wholly different person and she would never think anything of it. Then you'd start like ticking fabric or something like that. And you're like, and that would give you away. Or there'd be something that's like, why are you always whistling, making noise? My husband does the same thing. Like there would be, I don't think there's too much weird little things that we're used to in our relationship that would definitely show up that I don't think about showing up. Same thing with her.
Right.
I would think the same thing. Like if she showed up dressed as a man and was just around, and I was like, do all the same things she does. Like there would be something too specific. Yeah. I don't think it could, like, there's no way. I think maybe a day or two, but not very long.
No. And especially being back in what has been your own home with your own children.
Yeah.
Like I call my kids down from stairs, tell them to come down by a whistle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a certain whistle I do.
Yeah.
And like, there's no way I wouldn't,
not
instead of saying, "Oh, my darling children, come down the stairs." At some point I'd
the
be
voice
like,
would drop.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Exactly. I would,
or
I
like,
would do my traditional.
We have dogs. We like pets would give you away immediately. Immediately. Any dog in this house, this movie is null and void. Like, why is the dog so affectionate? Why is he smelling you? He's not a big, like, he hates everybody. He's like, I don't know. I do, like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and especially our dog hates guys.
Yeah.
Completely. Like I'm the only guy, well, me and my son.
Yeah.
That he'll deal with. And well, he doesn't even really like women either.
He just hates anybody that's not in that house.
It's our household, and he wants nothing to do with everyone else. So if he just snuggled up against me, it'd be like,
what's this about?
It would be unusual.
Okay. So that's really interesting. Yeah, you don't think of those things.
Yeah. All right. What are your So obviously Robin Williams, you can tell at the point whenever he's meeting with the social worker that he's riffing through impressions.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's almost trying to do an interview, like,
yeah,
hey, this is what I'm good at.
yeah.
And goes through it, and she is just completely unimpressed. But there are some great Robin Williams stuff in this, and there's great lines too when he's not even that goofy.
Drive-by fruiting.
Obviously. Oh, God, that's the best. But obviously, the hot dog, we've already
impression of a hot dog. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite Robin Williams that, probably got in there, maybe when he was riffing or,
I really like the whenever he's doing the montage with his brother and they're making him into different people. I like the Barbra Streisand. That's pretty solid. But whenever they make him the little Jewish person, the Jewish lady, I think he says like, oh, that so and so is so chewy. I think he's talking about a foreskin. He's like, oh, they made this and it's like it was so chewy. And I'm like, it's like that's such a little like an obscure reference that you could throw that in a kid's movie and not realize that that's something. And I heard, and then the matchmaker, make me a match. I really enjoyed that.
Yes.
All that kind of that little fun stuff.
I love the all the references whenever the social worker shows up at his apartment. He meets her at the door as Mrs. Doubtfire, and then he's got to play these dual roles. And he runs back to his bedroom and he's trying to change out of the Mrs. Doubtfire.
I have a new face.
And
I'm a changed man.
Like, I'm a changed man. I just want to keep you abreast of everything as he's taking a bra.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I'm putting a new face on things, and he puts it on the mannequin. And
that is a good point. You can really tell when you're like, okay, as far as like in this movie, you're like, that was scripted. That definitely wasn't scripted. Like whenever he's talking to Pierce Brosnan about all the euphemisms for sex, you're like, this is definitely Robin Williams doing this.
He was going.
Yeah. Or the initial dinosaurs, that was definitely just like, Robin, go do something. Everything
just genius.
Absolutely.
He takes the I don't know what they're called.
The dentures.
What are those called?
The dentures, the
cover-ups or whatever. But he's like, no, I have a new job. It's something I can really sink my teeth into. Puts it into it goes over and over and over.
Doesn't
with
stop.
Like every one of his changes. It's great. So any other one-liners stick out to you?
I do like it's not necessarily all that funny, but for some reason it always sticks in my mind. Bdee, piss off, Lou. I don't know why that one always kind of sticks with me, and it's just
that's the ultimate fuck you quit line.
Like I've never had the opportunity to quit a job like that, and it's like, oh man, it's nice. Like I mean, there's just it's too much to think of. How about it's like he was really fond of the drink. He's like, oh, he's an alcoholic. No, he's hit by a Guinness truck. Like it was literally the drink that killed him. Like definitely.
Yeah.
Or what was the one? It's like what was Mr. Doubtfire's? It's like his idea of foreplay was Effie, brace yourself. And it's such a throwaway line. That's a great line.
Effie, brace yourself. But you could just imagine like this old Englishman, like, hey, saddle up.
He was like, well, this is what's happening. Yeah.
One that I picked up that I'd never noticed was whenever they're at the restaurant and he's getting hammered with his boss. And, he falls over and everything. He's obviously hammered.
Yeah.
And then those teeth come off in his wine.
Yeah.
And he's like digging it out with a fork, and he was like, "Oh, carpe dente," sees the teeth. I was like,
and then,
oh my God,
it's his own reference. Like he referenced his own movie. Like
carpe dente.
So in the world of Mrs.
Genius.
In the world of Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society exists.
Yeah.
Like, so it's very meta. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That was my favorite. That was something. I guess the last time I watched it, maybe I was too young to understand the reference or whatever. Yeah. But I was like, oh my God, that's fucking genius.
Just leave it in there.
Especially considering he's already done Dead Poets.
Yeah, exactly. It's impressive.
Well, all right, man. I've held you here long enough. I think I'm gonna let you go. You're free to leave.
All right. Before we go, Jake, what is your film rating of Mrs. Doubtfire?
Amazing. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious, but it is also heavy.
I agree.
It's a pretty heavy movie, really.
Considering for what it is, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like sitcoms when you can watch a husband and wife get in this vicious fight and you think it's funny, but it's because you can relate to it. And so this most vicious point in this family's life,
yep,
it lets you laugh about it.
I agree. I didn't realize how good it was until I rewatched it, and I'm like, man, it is good. I got a 4 out of 5. Like, it's like for a pretty broad comedy, exceptional on those levels. I agree. Before we go, I want to reiterate, thank you so much for Skadoosh Co movie rankings for picking this. A great film, a wonderful film to rewatch, especially with our current lives as fathers, as opposed to when we were watching as kids. Mm-hmm. As I said, UK-based YouTube film content hosted by Ryla, YouTube at Skadoosh and Co movie ranking, Twitter at Skadoosh. We will shout you out whenever we tweet out this episode. Thank you so very much. Skadoosh, exactly.
Skadoosh.
That just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic, the Common Man. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebHasBeen, on Letterboxd at Neb10, on Instagram at BitterMill Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. You can follow my other writings on the film experience and cinema scholars. You can also follow me on other pods. I'm the David Thewlis of podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you? I assume you will just shun your family for one night to get drunk with your boss.
I'll do it in disguise if I am. Or I might be in the refrigerator with my face in a cake. I don't know which quite yet.
Got to keep your options open. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Comment Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. We'll catch you guys next time. We got our last Listener's Choice episode. It is going to be a fun one. Speaking of O.J. Simpson, we are doing The Naked Gun for our final movie. Should be a blast to do next week. Thank you. Thank you so very much for being with us. We will catch you guys next time.
Take care of yourselves.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?